And here we go. I'm just setting everything up. Let's get it going right. Have to check my settings, audio. Wow, it hasn't forgotten it. That's fantastic. Well, hi everybody. Welcome to God Chat. Tonight I'm waiting on my wife to join me, and we will be discussing God's favorite race. um, I gotta tell you, it's been a crazy week. It's been a crazy month. It's been a crazy year. And I think things are getting crazier by the day. And I think it's important that we start discussing these things. All right, let's see if I can say hi on the chat. Hello, world. Ooh, it's completely not letting me post to some destinations. Why not? Well, that's silly. Let me see if I can fix that. Dun, 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 dun. So it goes to some and not to all. Okay, anyways, I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm just going to start talking because there seems to be a divide growing in this nation between what is right and what is wrong. And I think we need to discuss that now. Give me just a second. I need to turn this ceiling fan on because it is sweltering hot. All right. Here we go. Plus, I have a crazy kitty here who keeps clawing at me every time I get up, but that is life. She's happy with a fly that's flying around. It happens. So I want to talk tonight about racism. I want to talk about the absurdities that are being spoken. Um, and they really have not much to do with God. It's like we've forgotten God. You have whites being defensive, you have blacks being supremacist, and every race in between kind of scrambling, trying to figure out where they land. And I think we need to discuss it because we all come from Adam. And, the arguments are going back and forth. Jesus was black, Jesus was white. Who cares what Jesus was? Jesus was in the flesh, he was human. Good evening, Gary. Hello, Sleestack. Shalom, shalom. Trying to talk up about God tonight. What can I say? I'm getting torn up by what I see in the world, and I'm really getting depressed about it. Some of you guys know I'm super sensitive, and I just want to establish some things. Yeah, well, all humans do look alike, don't they? Gary, I can't seem to share the stream thing with Facebook, but if you want to stream, I will try to get into my God chat on Facebook. Oh, there it is, and post it. Here we go. Let's see. And that doesn't mean you have to join. I'm just putting this up there for anybody who does want to join. Boom. There we go. So now it appears in Facebook. So yeah, let's talk, guys. I mean, what is the number one race in God's eyes? The obvious answer is the human race. I mean, the Jews were his chosen people. But I don't think Judaism itself rests necessarily on nationalism or whatever we call it, our race. Although there is a pure bloodline and all that, the fact of the matter is Jesus didn't die for just the whites. He didn't die for just the blacks. He didn't even die for the good whites and blacks. He died for everybody and anybody willing to accept him, to believe in him. And when I hear the lines of division being formed, and I see how vicious it is when, for instance, stereotypes start hitting. Now, I know Black Lives Matter will say, well, blacks have lived with that forever. Not for me. And I've always been an opponent of racism, not even by choice. I was raised that way. And that doesn't mean that I wanted to be a racist. But some people I understand may have come to the understanding that they they don't have to be racist, don't want to be racist, whatever you want to call it. I simply wasn't raised like that. When I saw racism in movies and TV, I thought, wow, that's a setup for a villain. That's a villain's actions. And I believed that most Americans weren't racist. I believed that racists lived in the South and that was the only place you'd find them. And how silly was I? Because I really had no clue what was really happening in this world, apparently, because it's bad. It's bad. I don't see how you can look at cops and deem them completely innocent. You can look at cops and say, there are some bad cops. And why are those bad cops still there? Is it unions? Is it politicians? Does it matter? I don't understand how many complaints have to be registered to get an officer removed from the badge, so to speak. I don't know why that's happening. Hey guys, how you doing?
All right.
Hello. Shalom.
Shalom. You want to talk about God's favorite race tonight?
Oh, are you talking about altrusions again?
No, sir. I'm talking about human beings, the human race.
Oh.
And I'm only bringing it up because I've spent all day, again, online watching racist crap, and I don't understand why. And I don't.
Why on earth would you do that?
Research, I guess.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't.
It's driving me nuts, man. How do we bring this country back together? I mean, it's like if your skin color isn't I don't even know how to put it. You guys see it. It's depressing me.
I don't.
It's going to depress you. That's the problem.
Yeah, you're talking about like the social justice people? Because I mean, some of them, like there's one named Chrissy who's like always been a critic of Comicsgate and EVS and stuff, and she's pretty nice individually. Then there's like say Renfamous and.
No, actually, I'm talking about because
Yeah,
I haven't even been paying attention to them. I've been watching videos of like interviews with people from Antifa, from Black Lives Matter. I've been seeing stupid posts by white people who are just insensitive in general.
yeah.
And my mind is popping.
I think Chrissy supports Antifa, but I don't think she's beating people over the head with a bike clock. She's the person who's like hanging out with John Del. She's like talking to John Del Rose online, and getting flack for that. So
That's pretty funny.
yeah, because there's some people on the left that I've met who are actually willing to engage in dialogue. And I have nothing wrong with the people if they're going to engage in dialogue. It's when that dialogue breaks down that's kind of a scary thing.
Well, and then we're witnessing, the result of that. It's like people I never thought had a racist bone in their body are exposing themselves in weird ways. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like today, I got attacked by a young lady who I know quite well for what exactly was it? I stated that if COVID was this dangerous, then why are we allowing the protests? And she went off about how, the protests are important and they being blacks have been discriminated against and they have a right. And I said, but wait a minute, if COVID is this dangerous and we're closing down everything from churches to schools to restaurants to bars, whatever it may be, 4th of July celebrations, why are they just embracing the protests?
Well,
I said,
but
to me, it almost looks like they're wanting the protesters to get COVID and die. If it's that deadly.
2 out of 12 of the members of the Sleestackians link group, independently of each other, have the virus.
Wow.
Two of the people in their link group.
The real issue with the virus is how deadly it really is or is not.
Well, somebody can be asymptomatic.
Yep, but they would
mess up their lungs for the rest of their life, supposedly. So that should be a symptom. I don't know why that's called asymptomatic. If I think they're doing a poor job, these health professionals who are experts on it seem to do a very poor job getting the word out to the public.
Yeah,
They're
and
being
they're-
politicized, so they'll say things like, "Oh, don't go to Trump's rally," but
But you can meet us down for the
if you
protest.
listen to, there's other people who will say, these point out that these rallies could get people sick too, because I've seen that on all the major networks. They're more likely to talk about Trump's rally, but they'll some of these they still have experts on saying, these protests will get people sick.
I actually had a friend tell me or post that report that says the riots and protests did not spread COVID. It wasn't that bad for COVID. And I absolutely don't believe that. I don't believe it.
De Blasio issued an order that in was it New York City, they don't want health professionals to ask questions about
whether or not they're going to protests.
If that's inaccurate what he said, supposedly telling them not to ask. So I'm thinking that sure, it being outside, maybe it cuts down on the risk of transmission, but those Trump rallies are outside too. So,
well, and even the ones in the arenas.
Yeah, the arenas are open aired.
But no matter where they are, like I think actually the one in Arizona may have been in a indoor. I'm not positive. I know the Mount Rushmore one.
Hi.
Diana has joined us.
How you doing? But
Hi.
If they're doing something in Arizona, Arizona Cardinal Stadium has an optional open air closed air operation. So
okay, that makes sense. But it's sad, and I'm going to be honest. I don't talk a lot about God online anymore, but I can't do anything without him. I love God, and you can't love God and not love your fellow man. And I'm struggling because there are a lot of people that I would say I'm angry at, and there aren't even people I know. I watch a video, I hear the guff going on, and it's inspiring me to not like them or to quote unquote hate them. And it's become really hard to find that love center,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I understand that.
I know. I'm talking with them too.
I know.
So Diana is actually in the room with me tonight, which is kind of cool because we were doing a separate thing, but it's completely unnecessary because, we live together. We don't have to worry about COVID.
Yeah, and I've been out in the pool all day, and I'm like, I don't want to go down to my office. Can I just join you?
Now, your approach has been funny because my
God.
wife has been taking the very strong stance of nothing matters because I trust all in God.
Yeah.
And I agree with her. We do trust all in God.
But he's going to do a butt. Watch.
But at least as the man of the house, I think I am responsible for knowing what's happening in the world.
Yes, you are.
Hey, Diana.
Hi.
Sorry, it was AFK.
You remember Lorenzo, right?
I do. Of course I remember Lorenzo. Hi, Mighty Geek
You don't remember
Studios.
Mighty Geek?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey.
Okay.
So I'm here, and I am like Chris gets so frustrated with me, guys, because the one thing that I do is I do not watch all of the Twitter and YouTube, all of that stuff. I just honestly, my time to me is very precious, and I don't want to feed into that. So I look at it like, yep, I know what's happening. I know there are lots of people out there that are doing really crazy things, and I pray for them. And if somebody came into my circle, like let's say, for instance, Lorenzo, you decided to come to our town and you didn't have a place to stay, I would reach out to you and say, hey, dude, come on over. I'll give you something to eat. You can hang out on the couch, whatever. That's my role in this world. But all of this other stuff where you speculate and you discuss, it's not me. And I don't mean that it's not important, because it is. It is important. I'm not, not to
it's
anything.
overwhelming.
No, I'm not trying to be dismissive, but I'm like, okay, so how can I change that? Wait a minute, I can't.
The problem is it's
changed, but I personally can't change that unless God puts that person or that situation in my life.
Well, that's probably the proper way of looking at it. because I find it all overwhelming, and if I'm overwhelmed, I don't function all that well. I can kind of
Right, exactly.
I can
Exactly.
actually start kind of shutting down, and this
Mm-hmm.
it's probably me being on the autism spectrum, but I think anybody
Right. No, I get
can be
that.
that way. Anybody can kind of only have too much. Because I remember I was trying to warn people about when Obama was doing all those drone strikes, and Trump's actually upped the drone strikes like several hundred times, I think. But I mean, as many as what Obama was doing. But the problem was I kept trying to warn people every day, and on Facebook, and people just start tuning out, and they started getting upset with me too. If they didn't tune
Right,
out,
exactly.
because they couldn't tune out, and
Exactly.
so it didn't really end the drone strikes either.
And so
Know about it. It's like people didn't really. There wasn't really much they could do about it.
And that's really something we find ourselves in a lot, where we can't really do much about it.
But I understand that people with autism, you get stuck. Now, just to let the other person know that I'm married to Chris, who is high functioning autism, was diagnosed with Asperger's, but that's no longer a valid diagnosis. So high functioning autism is.
It's valid.
It's valid
the damn
according to
scientific
all the people
community
that
changed it
are like,
again.
yes, exactly.
You know,
They're just covering it as part of a spectrum, because it's hard to say. Because I was like diagnosed with standard autism, thinking and before that I had PTT. Was it called
PTSD?
No, it was PD is pervasive developmental disorder.
Oh yeah, PDD, pervasive developmental delay.
Yep.
So there's all these categories, and they just decided, instead of just trying to parse out which exact form of autism people had, we're just going to call it autism spectrum. That way they're covered.
Exactly.
But
I think
it's kind of like saying
somebody can have one aspect of one thing and then have an aspect of another type of autism condition.
Right.
I think. So I think they're trying to help people out, and
the point
it's confusing when they lump it all together too.
So the point that I'm making is that although I personally do not have autism, I live in a household with two people that have high functioning autism.
Yeah.
And to be the outsider in that world.
You mean the neurotypical?
The neurotypical, yes. In that world, sometimes can get I get overwhelmed because they are so intense on specific things. Like with Chris, for example, he literally reads and watches all this stuff that's going on in the world. Like I'm very aware of what's going on in the world, but I don't have that desire or that need to have to keep looking at it on a daily basis. Now, to respect my husband, he does that. So when we have conversations, sometimes it's a little out of balance. I'm like, yeah, well, God is in charge. And he's like, what do you mean? Yes, I know it. So it's very.
Well, I want to read something while we're just.
It's very interesting in our household because,
the promises were spoken to Abraham and to his seed. Scripture does not say and to seeds, meaning many people, but and to your seed, meaning one person who is Christ. Now that alone would kind of lead people to think that, well, maybe there is a special people and not everyone. But if you go to the Galatians just a little bit further down, wow, I saved this and it's not there. Hang on, let me paste it. But if you go, okay, so that was Galatians 3:16. If you go to Galatians 3:29, it sums it up beautifully. And it says, paste, boom, show. If you belong to Christ, meaning Jesus, Yahshua, whatever you want to call him, then you are Abraham's seed and his heirs according to the promise.
Right.
So whether you're black, white, Latino, Chinese, deformed, or enhanced, whatever you might be,
right?
If you believe in Christ, you're the seed of Abraham.
Exactly. And so that is a leveling field for me.
Well, yeah. And that says, like these arguments, I've seen people arguing that Jesus was black and Jesus was white. And I'm like, who cares what Jesus was? It doesn't matter. That's not the issue. I mean, if I find out that God was black as spades, I'm happy to accept that.
It doesn't matter. To me, the skin color doesn't matter. The ethnicity, it's so crazy because I look at the world and I'm like, oh my God, guys, you're getting all, you know what? I get it. Slavery is awful. That should have never happened. absolutely should have never happened. But let's move forward. Let's take a step and move
Well, the
forward.
sad thing about it is nobody seems to get past it. And I understand that the real problem isn't really the slavery. It's that we still have cops that are out there that shouldn't be on the force. We still have a justice system that's improperly balanced where, you know, I've seen white women get busted for sleeping with their students, teachers.
So we still have people that do not
Okay.
know Yeshua.
I was trying to finish.
You may finish.
So we have white teachers or female teachers. They'll sleep with their student and they'll get probation or a year or two in jail. You'll have a male teacher sleep with their student and bam, he's in for 10 to 20. You know, and it's like there's imbalances. White people get better treatment than black people. Women often get better treatment than men in the court system, even though the crimes can be identical. And in some cases, like there was a white punk in Boston. He was a college white upper class kid. He raped a girl behind a dumpster. She had passed out. And he got 6 months because the judge thought that the rape charge would ruin his life. And all I could think was, why should it not ruin his life? You know, that is a major problem when
But, yeah, I think I heard about that case.
yeah, and it's
I
ridiculous.
think he was claiming that he had wasn't the one who raped her, or he had sex with her or something, but they were both drunk, and then I think he had a different story about it too.
Yeah, I
They're trying
think
to lure, you know, they're trying to lure people, and then people went and had him arrested, or of course, he makes himself out to be a hero, but
it's just go ahead.
Neither one was in the right mind to give consent. So that was
yeah, if he was like a poor person, probably he would have gotten all sorts of time.
Well, I think
Even
what
if neither of them were, even if both of them were drunk, too drunk to consent. I'm sure if he was poor, and if he was you know, maybe if he was a minority too, you know, he could have been charged with a lot more.
well, yeah. So
Possibility.
let's just put it out there since we're talking about race. Had he been black, I think he would have been in a lot of trouble. Period. You know, like
Yeah.
I think
he wouldn't have gotten any breaks.
I still think if somebody's poor and white, you know, if they're poor at all too, that's a big factor in how people are charged, because
Yeah,
you know, there are a lot of people being pulled over by the police just because they're poor and their car's not in the best of shape, and you know, maybe they didn't, you know, maybe
yeah. If you're driving
people
through
can
a
get
sector,
signaled out a lot easier, and then they can get paid, you know, these fines, and if they don't pay the fines, they can end up in jail just for missing and not being able to pay fines.
well, and that in itself is kind of aggravating too. The fines that are or I guess the bail itself is like a rigged system, because if you don't have money, you're screwed. Yeah, if you're rich, you're out in 3 hours. You know, hey, no problem.
I think these corporations are more willing to go and give to, say, Black Lives Matter, and they can even go and give to, there's another Black Lives Matter organization that's perfectly fine with the police. Is what I've heard. I've heard there's a different organization, not the national one, but a different one. And they don't really have to, these corporations don't even have to look into, you know, they're just like, oh, I support Black Lives Matter. And then they don't have to worry about like economic injustice.
Right.
They could just say, oh, look, they could just like have some, you know, hire some extra, like say diversity hires or whatever for like, they're going to hire some, like hire like some token people or whatever and make it seem like everything's perfectly fine. Like, you know, some bank or some, you know, because there's these big banks and they're claiming for Black Lives Matter, and it's like, I don't think they really want a serious change in this country.
Yeah, it's rush. It's bad. And I just want it to end. And I know we're never going to have peace on earth until it all comes down. You know what I'm saying? But going down like this, like I never thought I'd see America get to the point where people are seriously rioting, hoping for communism.
Well, it's not gonna. I wouldn't imagine it actually end up being like real communism, but it could be like some weird hybrid of like they got in China now, where the corporations, there's these large corporations there, and yet they also have an authoritarian government.
Yeah, they're power drunk.
It's not exactly. It's not real. It's probably not what Chairman Mao wanted, but it's something really freaky. Where it's combining some of the worst aspects of like, making people confess to crimes that they didn't really commit. You had these they call them Maoist struggle sessions, is what they were called.
Really?
And now I think that's what it was called, where people were forced to like denounce their own parents, like students were forced to denounce their own parents.
Actually, I saw something
kill their own parents, maybe.
There was a documentary on real recently. I forget which of the services, but they were going through all that, what was happening in China, and
when they
did that,
revolution.
Yeah, how they were destroying like all the monuments to religion.
Yeah. They
But
took
the
down a Frederick Douglass statue. I mean, Frederick Douglass was a slave, and who was anti-slavery.
The problem is Frederick Douglass is also one of the founding members of the Republican Party.
Yeah, he was like he was the one who put pressure on Lincoln to free the slaves, and Lincoln was Republican. I mean, but I think Frederick Douglass was even more pro abolition than even Lincoln was originally. Back when the Republicans were the abolitionist party, as you were saying. I didn't realize he was a founding member of the Republican Party, but that would make sense. I believe he was an ambassador to Haiti or some other country. I mean, once he was freed from slavery. So I mean, it was extremely important. And why is he being erased from history?
Because his views disagree with the narrative.
It seems like this is advancing white supremacy. This whole tearing down statues of abolitionists. I mean,
well, what I'm afraid of is it's going to establish something worse than white supremacy, in my opinion, and that's going to be more or less class supremacy. So you'll get the top 1 or 2%, and then everybody else is just screwed. And
I think that's what's going on.
Yeah, but I don't want to live in a world where they say
this movement, and they're not. I don't think there's going to end police brutality or even. It's going to. I don't know that Chaz or that autonomous zone, Capitol Hill autonomous zone. That turned out to be even worse than things were the place. People were getting shot left and right.
And you notice
the ambulance couldn't go through there to help people. God
was missing from those places. They actually had video of evangelists who tried to go in. Now, granted, these guys are the overblown, you're going to burn in hell. This is, but they were literally pushed out. And within that community, and I'm going to say something that a lot of non-believers won't like, they're being told, you don't need God. You just need to be good to each other and everything will work out. And the problem with that is people start being good to each other, but then things start going south.
It goes against a lot of values that Black people in this country, and even West Africa, a lot of Black people believe in God. Even like say in Haiti, where they practice voodoo, they have there's a view of God. It's a different kind of view of God. At least they believe in some sort of God. Mm-hmm. Like in Haitian Creole, it's I think the word's Bendia, the good God.
Well, Rabbi Peter, you guys have probably heard of him before. He had his orphanage in Haiti, and he came back, I think maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But there are huge movements for God down there. It's just there's a lot of Satanism too. And by Satanism, I mean that as an umbrella statement. You know what I mean? Like whether you're talking voodoo or paganism or whatever.
Yeah, the people practicing and wouldn't consider Satanism. They would even the people doing the bad stuff will pray to God before putting a curse on someone. And that's not even like a legitimate, that's like a Boker who does that, not a Hogan, a priest. I'm probably pronouncing the names wrong. I'm not even sure. I don't know if all brokers do that, but they're the ones who deal in like the gray kind of. They'll do both, or they'll do kind of good white magic and black magic.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think they're called brokers. And then there's the people who are the person who I think the broker is considered like kind of take shortcuts or whatever. They're not exactly a priest. They're kind of like.
I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret.
Yes, sir.
Remember what happened to George Floyd?
Yes.
Well, the same thing happened to a white guy, and no one knew about it.
Are you talking about Tim Tip? What's his last name? And I only know because I saw a video today of it.
Yes.
Yes.
But no one knows about this because it was never aired.
Yep.
I remember there was that Cop Block, and there was also Cop Watch, and I think it was Cop Block that a number of these Cop Block sites were taken off of Facebook. And I don't remember the left protesting at all when those sites got removed. They're the ones that there's Cop Block and Cop Watch, and both groups I think had people filming the police. So if they did something bad, and sometimes maybe sometimes they might only film part of it and maybe make the officer look bad when they didn't really do anything bad. I don't know, but I'm just saying that the goal was to document police brutality.
Yeah, but I think the point Mighty Geek is making is why would they publicize George enough to incite all this fighting and rioting?
Well, it turned racial because
they didn't even mention Tim on any of the.
Yeah, because Cop Block and Cop Watch were non-racial. It showed cops who were doing the wrong thing. I'll say, but it would document police brutality, no matter who it happened to. And then Facebook took down a bunch of these sites on there, and all of a sudden this Black Lives Matter movement came about, and it became an argument over kneeling or not to kneel during the national anthem.
Yeah.
And then nothing happened with police brutality during that whole time, at least, or not enough happened. And so now we have these riots, and it's like, here we had a movement where people were actually filming when officers would do something, that they considered to be wrong. Again, this has to be, tried, it would have to go to court, in order to determine what exactly happened.
Right.
The Cop Block sites were taken down by Facebook because this whole thing, and I'm sure they use the whole thing with Russian bots or whatever with the election and all that to censor things. And the left's been pushing censorship. So of course they went after these cop sites.
Yeah, well, if it doesn't fit their narrative,
and replaced it with a movement which I don't think is very effective. I don't think Black Lives Matter has been very effective getting the message out. Because people think it's about people thought it was about the national anthem.
Well, you know what I think part of the problem is? I don't think, and I'm going to speak as a white person here, I don't think it's been taken seriously enough until recently,
It hasn't. That's the problem.
And I know that, okay, like we can find arguments in a lot of this stuff. There was that young man, what's his name? Oh God, I feel terrible. I can't remember him. It was the kid who went in and strong-armed a robbery and then tried to grab a cop's gun and got shot.
Yeah.
Was it Ferguson that it happened in? But at any rate,
I'm not sure.
Right.
But I know what you're talking about.
They brought that up, and they didn't point out how the cops really misbehaved. And when they did, white people didn't believe them. No. And then, it gets ridiculous. George never should have been killed. That was a ridiculous freaking. If I had been there, I would have been arrested because I wouldn't have been shooting a camera. I'd be going after the cop. But I never would have been able to help. They would have just taken me down.
First of all, the maneuver that the cop did wouldn't have cut off his air circulation.
I think what might have happened was
another version of a chokehold.
I think what he was doing. I think what happened was the guy who was maybe starting. He may have even started having a heart attack. He tried warning the cop, and the cop just kept him down on the ground, and he might have died of a heart attack.
The thing is
just as bad.
But I think
the thing is the cop used one of many sleeper holds. This, what he did with his knee in the back of his neck, it's designed to not render a person unconscious, not kill him, because you're nowhere near the windpipe.
Okay, but let's pretend that didn't kill him.
Yeah, he did that for several minutes, whatever he
Like
did.
3 minutes after the guy was unconscious. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the?
Yeah.
Excuse my French.
It's completely uncalled for, regardless of how the guy died. He just kept. He could have gotten the guy to the hospital because the guy
Right.
said. The guy said
This thing escalated because Floyd resisted. That's why it escalated. That's the part they won't tell you.
But there's no part. I've never seen any video proving that. If it comes out in court, then we'll see it. But I never saw any.
There was one from the door of the store, and they showed him go in one door, and I guess he slid out the other door where he eventually was pinned. But my problem is more when someone is incapacitated, when they're knocked out, when they're done, they're just you don't continue.
That's a whole different matter now.
Exactly. And that really upsets me. And that was what opened my eyes. Now, I've seen a lot of cops, especially during these, these, I want to call them riots, but the protests and the riots, where they're obviously sadistic. They laugh about, shooting people with rubber bullets. They mock, they mock tear gas, using tear gas. I think that's great. Those are probably bad cops.
Yeah, and we need to figure out a solution to that. Also, some of these officers are being trained in warrior training, and even when the mayor said, I can't remember which town it was, one city, but the mayor said he mandated that the officers no longer be trained in warrior training, and so they're getting trained anyway through some volunteer program.
Well, you know what I would like to see, because we know they want they being the side against the police,
military. So.
But we know they want to get social workers out there. I think a better plan would be, number one, you eliminate the cops that have a history of abuse. Number two, you take all the rest of the cops and you start training them in the same thing that the social workers are learning, so that they can understand, okay, I'm coming up on this situation. I don't necessarily need my gun. Or they can understand, I know how to talk this guy down instead of having to tase him.
Yeah, like they do in Germany and other European nations.
Right. We know
they rarely use a gun. Now, of course, they might have to use a gun more often because we have so many people in America who have guns, but they should at least have a way of training officers in how to defuse potentially volatile situations.
Well, really, to stop
it helps the officers.
Citizen unrest. And I'm going to sound religious here, but the best thing to stop religious unrest is for them to get in touch with God. The problem is people don't have any regard for authority right now for whatever reason. And that started when we took God away from society. And I understand we have atheists. We have people who don't believe in the same God. We have different religions. But when you lose the supreme moral compass, you become your moral compass. And I know when I become my own moral compass, things are south. You know what I'm saying? They're bad. I have to keep my eyes on Christ in order to keep my heart proper. Because when I don't, I end up envying, lusting, coveting, whatever you want to call it. When I don't, I end up erupting in anger and having fits of anger, just like Paul said not to. Yeah. It's all that stuff. And we've lost that in this nation, at least it seems right now.
Well, they don't have they don't have teacher-led prayer in schools, but they do have prayer at the beginning of a lot of our government, like city government.
It's trying to be relevant though, because when you get into the school classes and the kids are taught, well, Jesus was a prophet, and that's about it. And Muhammad was a prophet, but Jesus claimed to be the son. They do it all like in a kind of like we would looking at a sci-fi show, Well, Captain Kirk was the captain of the Enterprise, but it's not real. They approach everything like that. And it's like, when you tell kids God's not real enough times, they start to think their parents are nuts. Because
they were never able to say anything like that in my school. That basically what we had was we had these student groups though. Yep. The student-led prayer groups, say during the lunch hour. any student could get together and form their own prayer group. So that's what we had.
I think they still can if they make a intentional effort to get a prayer group. But what I'm talking about is like the teachers don't believe, the parents don't believe, so the kids aren't believing. And
That's interesting. Things probably have changed.
Yeah.
In like, say 20 years since 2 decades or so since I graduated. But
well, working in the school system, I see it all hands.
yeah, you definitely would.
And even Christian teachers are afraid to speak up half the time. I can tell you that Diana was kind of a funny therapist because she would slide God into everything she did with these kids, and they know a little bit about God. They all seem to, but it gets broken down, kind of almost the same way Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny gets broken down. Somehow God is trash.
See, they weren't able to. I wasn't able to. If I'd mentioned God in the classroom, I would get. They'd say, "Oh, you can't talk. We can't talk about that." They get terrified. That's what. But I didn't hear. I don't remember any talk about God at all.
I remember God being treated the same way in my schools, but I wasn't in. I've been out for 30 years.
But some things may have changed now. Are they actively talking negatively about God in school? Because
if it comes up,
the teachers wouldn't.
Most kids don't know about him.
God is totally ignored in school.
Wow.
And in the older grades, when it comes out as an intellectual conversation, particularly in college, God is ridiculed. My son.
Oh, in college, there we go.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, by that time, my son and 2 daughters, they all went to college. They all came back either non-believers or what's the word I want to unstable believing, maybe.
Their relationship with Jesus changed.
Yes.
They're not relying on him. And that's what I wanted to say, because I have 2 seconds. So everybody's talking about like prayer in school and corporate prayer and large prayer and all of this stuff and, and God. But to me, it's always been about a relationship. It's always been about like, who do I go to when I am like at my lowest or I am so angry or whatever? Who can I rely on? And it's always been Jesus for me. And I'm not trying to be preachy. I am not trying to be anything, but that is where I'm at in my life. Like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like the schools, they don't, honor God. The world doesn't honor God. God is just like, he's dismissed nowadays. And it's not even about, these big mega churches, whether it's Baptist, Christian or whatever. It's about where do you go when you're all alone, when you're in your deep, darkest moments or wherever it might be. Who do you turn to? What do you turn to? And that to me is always what I look at when I meet people who are in crisis. It's like, so who is it? Where is it?
Well,
what is it?
Answer your question there, though. You said, who do they turn to? What do they turn to?
They turn to drugs, alcohol, the world. A lot of times it's money, it's material things, social media. It's all of the stuff that can give you like, okay, I feel good because so-and-so like came to my stream or so-and-so made a comment on my picture or so like, and it's not lasting.
But what happens when you get mad about something and you don't turn to God? So you go to Twitter, say,
right.
And you type in, man, I'm pissed. Black Lives Matter. And you're not going to get just the Black Lives Matter statement. You're going to get every extremist, every bizarre wacko who says they're Black Lives Matter, but they're really maybe communist or they're really maybe Antifa.
They have a totally different perspective.
Right. So these kids go out there looking for answers and they come back with, well, screw it. Let's go tear down the local statue because you know what? I think he owned a slave.
So my answer to all of that is love. Okay. You guys can all flip and laugh your butts off at me. I don't care. So if a person comes into my life, I don't know anything about that person. If they're mean to me, I try to say to myself, all right, Jesus loves me and I'm the biggest F up ever. Like I don't do things right. I don't always like glorify him in my life. So I always go back to, that's my starting point. That's my baseline. Like if Jesus can love me and I have totally messed up X, Y, and Z, then this Jesus must love this person somehow, some way. I've got to find that. I've got to see it. I've got to look through the eyes of Jesus. So that maybe is just unique to me. I don't know how many people think like that.
You're
That
not the
doesn't
only one that thinks like that.
but it doesn't mean that I don't get angry. It doesn't mean that when that beautiful black man was killed by some stupid white cop doesn't make me upset. Of course it makes me upset because I don't look at skin color. I look at like you're a human being. You're made in the eyes and God created you like him. You have bones, you got blood. We all bleed the same. Like that's where I'm at, which frustrates Chris a lot of times because like, yeah, I don't care about that. We're all the same. God loves us all. I don't care.
Well, because
So-
that is the answer for personal. But how do you change the police with just God loves everybody?
You
You
can't.
have to systematically go in and say, look, guys, you need a management solution to get the junk out and keep the good in.
And this is where I go, like, you have to take it one person at a time. Like, we're so different in that, you guys. It's funny because I'm like, we have to look at this situation based on through the lens of Jesus. Through the lens of Jesus, this guy is a total train wreck. He's a drinker. He's an abuser. He's this, he's that, he's everything, right? So how do I love him the way Jesus loves me? And I know that Jesus loves everybody, that Jesus is crying, he's sad about the state of affairs that his beautiful children are in. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what you believe in, but look at us. Look at how crazy we are. It's like, it's nuts. I just can't sometimes. So yeah, I'm not the best person to have on this show because I do kind of go on a different route than most people. I'm not super intelligent when it comes to worldly affairs. I don't watch all the stuff that you guys watch, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like I'm sitting here, I'm like, I have no idea. Oh, did that happen? So if you don't hear me pipe in, because when I do, this is what I do, and then Chris shushes me up. So
No. I love when you pop in. The
No,
thing
I'm
is,
gonna stop because it's
no,
almost
because
10.
the thing is, like, okay, you brought up a good point. You got to take people individually.
Yeah,
But
you
in the
know?
world of government, the police problem, I believe, starts with the police unions.
No, the police unions start with they're all out of touch with God. They don't know Jesus. If people were looking through the lens of Jesus and saying to themselves, how should I? They don't. It's because it's the world. The world. Look at Rabbi Peter's
Do you know what
teaching.
unions do?
They supposedly protect the people.
Right. So
But where are they starting from? What's their baseline?
they don't use God. They start.
Of course they don't.
They start from supposed fair practices.
So where did the fair practices come from?
Well, I'm sure somewhere along the line,
God.
it was important to them that you can't be falsely accused and fired. But then what happens is that turns around and goes, well, if you're accused, you can't be fired until it's investigated.
But if you get into the nitty gritty of all that, it's all based on God's
Right, but you
love.
can't change that
I can't change that.
without getting involved in that.
Well, I'd like to offer everybody a cup of coffee. I don't know, guys. I'm super simple. I'm super silly. I just love people when they come into my life. I just take them.
Well,
as
if
they
we
are.
had children in the house, right, and they were watching porn videos on,
I would stop that.
How would you stop it?
I
I
would
would just-
say, this is not healthy for you
Yeah.
to be looking at that stuff. Why? Because God did not intend for you to do that. But I don't believe in God. Well, guess what? You will, because I will help you understand who the person of Jesus Christ is.
So can I just take a moment to remind you of a foster child we once had, and the way we stopped that foster child from looking at porn was we removed the devices that allowed them to look
Well,
at
of
porn.
course, you do all of that worldly
Are we
stuff.
going to take away the cops' guns?
Or just take out the cops that are proven to be
Right.
abusive.
So, I mean, you have to do, I'm not saying, oh,
Okay, I just
put
wanted
a
to make sure.
flower on my head and give everybody I don't mean that. But I mean, God has to be, I believe, and in my life it's proven to be true, that he has to be a part of every flipping decision that I make, every perspective that I have. I have to counter it with what I know of him. That's all I'm saying. And I don't see that a lot in the world. That's all
No,
I'm saying.
it's
And I
almost
just,
dead in
like,
the world. You're right.
I mean, guys, I work for a boss who is a Hindu, who only practice Hinduism when her relatives say, hey, you should do this because it's going to be honoring one of the gods. And she's Okay, but she doesn't practice it in her personal life. Like, so what is that? What kind of a base is that? It just doesn't make sense to
But
me.
before we slander all Hindus,
I'm not
I
slandering.
want
They're
you to know
loving
that I've had,
people.
yeah, they are loving
They're
people.
loving people. I don't mean it, but I'm just saying that sometimes some of the belief systems that are in this world,
Are worthless.
well, there's too many rules to follow. When it comes down to me, it's like I do the things that I do because I love Jesus, because I believe in what he died for. And that's the bottom line. I keep it very simple. Like, can I quote scripture? No way. Have I read the Bible? Yep. Do I read the Bible? Yep. Do I talk to God on nonstop? I do. Does he answer me? Absolutely, because it's reflected in the way I live my life and the blessings that he's given me. How do I relate that to other people? Well, I can't say that to them. Like, I couldn't say to you guys, oh, yeah, this happened. I have to demonstrate it. I have to love you where you're at. I have to love you through whatever you're in. And I have to be there for you. I have to befriend you because that's what my God has done for me.
Well, and that's kind
I
of
don't
where
know
we
if that
started this
makes-
conversation.
Yeah, I
You
don't know
weren't
if that
in here,
makes sense to
but I was
everybody.
saying I don't know how to bring that love in some cases. I get stuck because I'm like,
Well, I don't either. So I have to say,
Yeah.
all right, Father, this person really irritates me.
what's that, brother?
No, I said in some cases it's a lot simpler than you think.
Of course it is. Of course it's tough. Sometimes I have to step away from people because they absolutely drive me cuckoo. Sometimes I have to end that relationship because it's not healthy. And God has like told me, like, you're not the right person for this particular relationship. And you move on. So you have to use a lot of wisdom. You have to use a lot of okay, they're not hearing me. It's like throwing mud against a wall. It's not sticking.
Pearls to swine.
Yeah, exactly. So you move on from that and you're like, right, Father, this is not where I'm supposed to be. I've always believed in that. If you feel you're called to help somebody, let's just put this, and I've helped a ton of people in my life. If you feel, you feel like, I really need to help that person. Oh my God, she's like homeless, she's this and that. And you step out in faith going, all right, Father, I'm just going to do it because that's what I believe you would have me do. 3 months later, that person hasn't changed. That person hasn't done anything for themselves, but you've all of a sudden found yourself that you're enabling that person. Then that's when I say, okay, I need to step back because I'm not helping them. I'm just another linchpin enabler in that person's life. I don't know.
Yeah,
if that makes sense,
exactly.
And so, but the thing is that I will step out in faith. I like to say that, like, I'll step out believing that God would want me to do that. But sometimes, obviously, I don't get it right. Sometimes I'm like, holy crap. I don't know what to say to this person. They're not hearing me. I need to back away and whatever. And that does happen. Obviously it does happen.
Hey, can I read this real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Oh, by the way, it's Colossians 3:11, not 3:11 through 13, because I only copied the first part of it.
I thought that was really short for 3 verses, but it's cool. Here, there is no longer Greek and Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, savage, slave, or free, but Messiah is all and in all.
Right.
And that, you know what, though? People don't understand that. And I wish Rabbi Peter was here
I know.
because he explains it so elegantly. But the bottom line is Christianity and other forms of it teach us to be followers of Jesus. He has to be in us. He has to, you remember when John said, I must decrease so that he can increase?
Yeah.
The point is, in our lives, he's supposed to be taking over so that eventually we are basically living copies of him.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, like with the next verse here, this is what we're experiencing. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. We are living in a very wicked time. And this is what I struggle with right now. Like, how do I love the Antifa punk who's chasing down a white guy, telling him that he's a white supremacist when he doesn't even know the white guy?
Right.
Or how do I...
Well, that's what I mean. It's like,
how do I
so
love these
hard.
guys who are gang banging on 1 or 2, white guys shooting fireworks at them.
Yeah. It's like I heard this I asked a priest about this before, Orthodox priest, and I know you're a Messianic believer, but I
Right.
thought it was interesting because he responded to you start off with like a little old lady's crossing the road, and you think to yourself, God bless her, and I'm like, well, that's easy, and he's like, exactly, and that's how you start off. You start off something simple, someone who you don't have a gripe against, and you think God bless that person, and then you work your way up to. I'm not saying that I'm really good at practicing that. I'm just saying
Sometimes
it's
I
an
feel
interesting
better than others,
interesting way to go about doing it.
but like sometimes, like in Twitter, for instance, I'll start saying "God bless you" and stuff, but I always have that little sarcastic something in there to do a zinger while I'm doing it. I've got to learn how to.
Yeah, that's what turns a lot of people off to religion too. And that's saying, and I think I think a lot of us have done that before. It's just try not to be like, it's like sometimes it's better not to say you're going to be praying for someone or God bless you or whatever, if it's going to come across as like you saying like F you or something to that person. Maybe it's not the right thing to say.
So I just wanted to bring this up by Joe real quick. I'm finding in these crazy times, I don't know why, but Jesus and things make sense to me right now. But what I am seeing going on looks eerily familiar and prophetic stuff of the Bible. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm going to Jesus as I am. Amen, brother.
Amen.
And that's the thing. We're getting sidetracked by every distraction that the devil can throw our way.
Yeah.
And I really hate phrasing it that way. If you don't believe in the devil, think of it as the evil force that rules mankind's heart.
Well, the stuff that sucks your attention and leaves you, depressed or frustrated or angry and stuff, that's not of God. So, that's just not God. God does not do that to you. And that seems to be what the entire world is like. The media has blown COVID-19 through the roof. Yes, it is highly contagious. Yes, it does cause death. Yes, you want to take precautions. You want to do all of that stuff.
The one thing though, Lorenzo pointed out that there is a strong belief that this will cause lifelong damage to people's lungs and stuff. I don't know if they've proven that or if they've just floated that as a scary thing to scare us into masks. But if it does, this could really F up the whole world for generations.
But the point that I'm trying to make is that, yes, it's horrible, but think about the Black Plague. Think about, other plagues that have wrecked, human history. It's no different to me than that. You know what I mean? It really, I don't know. I'm just at this point where I don't listen to the media anymore because I think that the media feeds on that kind of stuff. I think that
and that's
they're trying to keep it in the forefront.
Mighty Geek, your name is Terry, right?
Yes.
That's what Terry was bringing up when he brought up the white guy who got knelt. The media didn't hardly give any attention
I know,
to that.
and that's crazy, right? I mean, that's just crazy.
And if you watch the video, it's just as detailed as Floyd's was.
Of course it was.
If you really want to talk about police being killed in the line of duty by black offenders, there's the case of one David Dorn.
That one
a black police officer who was killed by rioters.
Wow. Was that the captain that was retired?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh man, I do remember that one. Yeah.
That's awful. That's just like, it's despicable to me. That's just.
Well, unfortunately, with the rage of a riot,
they don't view him as black because he wore a police uniform.
Right. And in the rage of a riot, they lose all common sense. And I hate to say that because basically humans become animals. Like in The Lion King, when Mufasa got stomped on by the frickin' stampede.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of concept. They don't really. I'm not saying those guys aren't responsible for killing him or they didn't know what they were doing, but the whole flood of energy, the whole wickedness of destruction, kind of takes over. Like
agree.
I never want to be part of a lynch mob or a riot thing or anything, because you see it in movies and you kind of laugh and it's entertaining, but that kind of rage kills people. It hurts people. It destroys.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Do you guys want to say anything? I feel like I'm holding you back.
Well, I understand what you're saying.
It's
But the problem with that's the problem with the hive mind. They all think the same way, and no one thinks rationally.
Yep. And that's what politics does.
Mhm. I'm sure you remember this quote: "The person is smart. People are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals."
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were talking about like the devil, even if somebody doesn't believe in the devil, or I mean, or you can look at it this way, right?
Mhm.
Well, I know a lot of people dismiss the idea of a big bad fallen angel that's doing big bad things, and I'm like, even if you do,
Yeah.
the evil lies in the hearts of men too. So it's if you want to think of the devil as metaphorical, go ahead. I actually believe in the devil, and
Yeah.
not in a like yay way. I just know he's a true entity. I wouldn't even call him a deity. He's just an entity.
So yeah, I was looking at it. That somehow got me thinking about. I'm looking at the New World Encyclopedia about Mara, and it says in Buddhism, Mara is the demon who assaulted. I can't pronounce the guy's first name, but Buddha.
Oh, Mahata. Oh no, is it Mahata?
Gautama.
Okay.
Because he's got a couple of different
Incarnations.
he's got a few different. There's a few different Buddhists, I think. But the Mara is the demon who assaulted him beneath the Bodhi tree, using violence, sensory pressure, and mockery in an attempt to prevent Buddha from attaining enlightenment. So you got with Christ, Christ is in the desert, and he's
the
tempted. Right before I think it was not that long before the crucifixion, right?
Actually, that was at the beginning of his ministry.
Oh, okay. I got that totally wrong then.
No, it's fine. But you remember,
but the devil was trying to prevent Jesus for Yeshua from doing doing God's work. So
remember, ultimately, he was going to offer him the leadership of the world. The devil was going to give over the power he had over the world to Jesus to get him to betray his father. And Jesus was like, "No sale, man. I know where I come from."
Yeah, exactly. Now, saying in Buddhist cosmology, Mara personifies unskillfulness. So unskillfulness is like, it's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like you got the sin. Actually, one of the words for sin in the Bible is means to miss the mark.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mara personifies unskillfulness, the death, in quotes, of the spiritual life. He is a tempter, distracting humans from practicing the Buddhist Dharma through making the mundane seem alluring or the negative seem positive.
And ironically, there are Bible passages, especially in the Old Testament, where it basically says, good will be called evil and evil will be called good. And that's what's happening in these times.
Oh, even with the comic book characters, there's a straight up villain like the Joker. And maybe some people there's some people who say, oh, this Joker, he's not so bad. It's a idea of sympathy for the devil, or
look what they did with Harley. She's
to look at, see, well, maybe something horrific happened in the Joker's life, and that's worth examining. But to say that he's a good person, he's behaving in a good manner.
But I mean, look what they did with Harley Quinn. She was basically his sidekick slut. And now she's some sort of liberation feminist anti-hero.
Yeah, she was supposed to be like somebody who, example of how women shouldn't be like that, because it was an abusive relationship, right? Because Joker is a very abusive human being.
Yeah.
And like for her being, and she was very much mentally ill, a very sick relationship to have, from what I recall from like
The thing you have to remember is Harley Quinn was created to be this type of person that could see the good in everybody.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
You can call her naive.
Oh, I see. Yeah, because
even though the Joker is very abusive and has done horrible things to her, she finds it in her heart to forgive him, and go back to him and try to find that good person that she knows is there.
one thing was be a very feminist type icon then.
Well, she's certainly become one if she wasn't one.
An icon that's in the Greek version of the Greek Septuagint translation of it uses the word I can't remember the full word, but in English we call it icon, or image.
Right.
We were created in the icon of God or the image of God.
And that goes a lot deeper than we think, because obviously we look around us and we all look different. So the image of God is more than just 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. It's deeper than all that,
Well, I don't know. I think all humans do look kind of similar. That's my Altrusian way of looking at things.
Well, I've been taking exception to being called white lately, because the only white people I know are albinos. I am more of a light tan color, not even more like a cream color, a peachy cream color. And now that I know is fighting just the conventional wisdom and the knowledge of what races are. Well, but it's because I think it's so foolish.
Actually, what you're describing as race isn't. What you're describing is an ethnicity.
Right. Yes.
There is only one race of people on this planet.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that these social justice warriors, they say that the race isn't real, or or at least that there's not any different races of modern humans. I mean, there used to be, like, say, was it the Neanderthals? Different races like that, but they don't exist anymore, like what you were saying. So what? But yet you were supposed to be. Yet if somebody's colorblind, that's considered to be a form of racism now. Even though it was Dr. King's goal was to be colorblind. So I'm really confused now. It's like people are supposed to acknowledge this whole thing that if race is some idea that the government came up with, which is what they're claiming, which I think is kind of an oversimplified view of things.
Right.
It is.
Then why is it that we should be? Why is it we shouldn't be colorblind, or why is it that we should be obsessed with differences? Like this person's left-handed, not right-handed.
Mm-hmm.
We got to make a note of that, because they might, I can understand. So I can understand. I think people, it was important to keep in mind, some people, there's different factors that might cause someone to be more likely to be stopped by the police, whether it be race or economic status or whatever.
Well, I think that's
another thing to go and be reinforcing these. It seems like this whole thing with segregating. Let's segregate the races is what some of these SJWs are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, how's that any different from what say Richard Spencer is talking about? He's talking about segregated safe spaces.
Are you talking about going back to like the days when there were black schools, white schools?
That's what we're talking about. Like with SHS, that Thomas Zone had wouldn't allow white people in the park on Juneteenth.
Wow. You know what, though? That's exactly how we treat animals, Oh, look, the cats and dogs don't get along, so we'll put them in separate cages. We're not animals. We're human beings. And we should be able to recognize each other and overcome these things. But there are so many forces, starting with the media, working into politics, going all the way down to, like you were just talking about, people getting pulled over. I know black guys get pulled over more than I do. I've seen it in my friends and all that stuff. So it's like there are definitely things we could do as human beings to improve all of this, and yet it's just getting worse.
Well, we have what is called a pattern of behavior,
Yeah. Yep.
and for certain communities, that pattern has become worse because of the breakdown of morals.
You're right. Yep. And I don't know how to fix that. I know I can't fix it, but I would love to have the solutions, you know. And Diana will remind you that it's God and Jesus, and I get that. But
Yeah.
how does this all melt
Do you
into?
know, do you know that during the Jim Crow era of the South, blacks were more successful because they had to rely on themselves?
Mm-hmm. Which city? I forget which city it was, but they used to call it the Black Wall Street, and it was comparable to the New York. And they basically trashed it. Not the blacks, but the
No.
whites basically trashed it.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we do that to anybody? You know, to me that just seems so disgusting. If something is going well and this is America, land of the free and opportunity for all, who the hell were those people to do that? You know, it's like, oh my God.
People not
Yeah.
welcome in the land of the lost. That's
You know
why.
what?
That's why most humans. I'll make exceptions for you guys, but most humans aren't welcome in the land of the lost.
Ooh, I like the land of the lost. Then again, you
It's,
know, the people of God
you don't get
want
stomped on by a
to
dinosaur
for
or
the
something,
land.
you know?
That's a different land of the lost, though, right?
Yeah.
The 40 years where they wandered the deserts. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they. It wasn't. I don't think it was that. It wasn't really that long of a journey. I think they just had to. Especially they had a shortcut crossing the Red Sea, but I think they.
Well, I think God just bewildered them, so they kept basically going in big circles.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they were traveling in circles. Like, and I think wasn't there some sort of reason too? Like they were trying to. What was it to? I mean, I think they lost their captors that way.
Well, I think it was something about. I think this is a story where Moses sent out spies, and only one or two came back with a good report, and everybody else was afraid. But the other two were like, "God said He's with us. Let's take down these giants." And because they doubted Him, I think that's why they were wandering 40 years. But I could always check that.
I know Moses wasn't allowed to leave the land of the lost or wherever he was at.
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to enter the promised land.
He went and they struck a rock without to get water out of it without asking God's permission first.
Yeah, and it was really unnecessary for him to do that. And that's what angered God. I love that. Is that a beeper? Like a vibrator?
Vibrator.
I hear it all the time. It goes, mm, mm. And I love it because it's like a undertone computer thing. It just always makes me yoo-hoo.
The thing is, there is something called a trial of free will.
Yep.
Basically, it's to test the reliance on oneself. As you were saying, you were told you can't drink from the well unless you ask permission from God.
Yeah.
Now you have to ask yourself, is there water in the well? Is the well open? If you can answer yes to both of these questions, then you have permission.
Right. Hey, Gary just reminded me of something, and I'll share it because the Facebook things aren't really coming through properly. 40 years of wandering was because of their sin at Mount Sinai.
Mm-hmm.
Worship the golden calf. Those were some crazy times. Can you imagine? Moses went up the hill to go get the 10 Commandments or something. God's up there. You're all afraid to go up. And while he's gone, you're going to throw a party and become pagans. Wow.
Well, the thing is, they might have built that thing and said that represented God. I mean, that's possibility. They said, "Oh, this is our symbol of God," because there were golden bowls that they found in, like instead of like a calf in an adult bowl, that they, made out of gold that they found in Ur, I think it was, which is where, who was it who was supposedly, Abraham was supposedly from or
Yeah.
I mean,
You have to look at
I
Mount
don't really
Sinai.
know much historically
like Mount
about
Olympus.
Abraham, but
Okay,
That's
so hang
cool.
on. I just Wikipedia'd it because Wikipedia has pretty cool summaries sometimes, and I'll
Yeah.
share this with you guys. Just because I was looking while you guys were talking.
yeah, they tend to be like follow a lot of what the secular scholars say, which I think it's important to see both ends, both what the secular scholars say and like what Christians have traditionally said, like church fathers and saints and stuff too.
If I can be honest, I trashed all that stuff and started over again when I went into Rabbi Peter's teachings, which may or may not be wise, but that's the way I went. So this is just Wikipedia, but it says according to the Bible, the golden calf was an idol cult image made by the Israelites when Moses went up to Mount Sinai. So I don't know if they thought it was God himself or if they just said, this is our God. I think that might have been more of it.
The way it goes is that they decide to create this golden calf as an image of God, which was a false idol.
It's like I'm thinking that might have been the case. Same thing with like the tree to the goddess that was placed in the temple. That because what's happening with Solomon is he ended up marrying some Canaanite women, and so the Canaanites believed that there was both a male god as well as a goddess. Instead of I think in Judaism, God has either both male or female or neither quite, but has both attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Both what we would consider to be masculine and feminine attributes.
But as I was saying before,
Bible, but
as I was saying before, in the ancient world, there were two mountains that humans were forbidden to climb. Mount Olympus was one because it was the home of the gods. Mount Sinai was the other because it was a gateway to heaven.
Yes.
So
it's like the cedar forest that the Mesopotamian people believed in. There's a story where Gilgamesh goes into the forest, I think maybe with his friend Enkidu, and they cut down a tree in the forest of the gods.
Right.
But but the Jews and Greeks believed that God lived on a mountain, associated with a mountain.
And it was forbidden for mortals to climb it.
And that's an interesting thing for ancients to say too, like that means they really believed what they were told about those mountains, whether it was real or not. I don't know, but
in most cases, yes.
I almost wish I could have been alive in a time like that when we weren't so inundated with technology and the magic of technology.
There was like Mount Gerizim is where the Samaritans to this day, and they consider themselves descended from Israelites. The Bible claims they actually were foreigners, but they could have been. Some scholars say they could be both, foreigners mixed with Israelites, like maybe the Assyrians.
You mean like through marriage or something?
Married with,
I mean like through marriage or something?
Yeah, it might have been some of the Israelites who weren't taken into the Babylonian captivity,
right?
Or might have intermarried with some of the people in the Northern Kingdom. Might have intermarried with the Assyrians. Yeah. I think it's the Northern Kingdom where the Israelites or the Israelites were, and then there was Judah. I think Samaria is in the Northern Kingdom. Could be wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And so they got Mount Gerizim that they say is their holy mountain, where there was Mount Zion, which I believe it was in Jerusalem. Then there's like Mount Sinai. Is that Mount Sinai, the one Moses?
Yes.
Yeah. So these different holy mountains would be there are these different mountains associated with God, and I think different people may have argued over which one was the correct one.
Right.
Because at least that's the argument going on now. That's the main theological difference, I think. So the Samaritans, I think, only have the first 5 books. They have the Torah, but I don't know if they recognize. I don't know if they recognize the rest of the Old Testament or Hebrew Bible.
Well, I know there was like a lot of interesting things before they canonized it. Like the Book of Jasher was really interesting, which was more or less like a summary of the entire Torah, but it was never authoritative.
No.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I read the Book of Jasher a few times because I was convinced I was getting inner knowledge.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the story of the Tower of Babel?
I'm sorry?
Are you familiar with the Tower of Babel?
A little bit, yes.
Yes.
It's another one of those stories where the tower was built so tall that God destroyed it.
Yep.
The thing is, anything built tall enough to reach the heavens was seen as an encroachment on heaven.
Yeah.
You have to look at it like, where are our boundaries?
Yeah, they definitely had a place they weren't supposed to be.
Well, it seemed like you're acting like it was like it's some sort of making an idol out of this tower that they were building.
No, it was supposed to. The reason they say it was God destroyed it because it was too tall and it was encroaching on the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, I'm looking up right now to see if I can find it real quick.
Yeah. Scientifically, I'm not sure exactly if that would have been a problem, but they were being arrogant about it. And they have found these minarets. They call it that they were like built in Babylonian stuff. These big towers that they were building to. And so some scholars believe that it could have been a minaret. Some people say, "Oh, that's just a legend." It's interesting though because they did have tall structures that were being built in the Middle East.
You have to remember that in most of these societies, they were built around most of these societies were built around a central religion.
Yeah.
So if you did something that would encroach upon the afterlife, the kingdom of heaven, or whatever the case may be, there are consequences to pay for that.
And it's interesting that they started speaking in different ways that they couldn't understand each other. They ended up speaking entirely different languages. But I've noticed that when people work on different projects, like even say with the Comicsgate thing, there was like, some faction that's, talking about like backholes and all this technical jargon. And another faction might not be using that terminology,
Exactly.
Well, this 11:6 of Genesis speaks kind of to this. It was the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. And that verse alone scares the crap out of me because what is impossible now with computers for us to do? And where have we gone? Like with genetics and modifying DNA of creatures, and God knows what they're doing to humans, but the governments are screwing around. We're just not hearing it.
At least we don't have 100% foolproof Google Translate. It still makes a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. Well, that just tells me we're just a little ways away. I really fear that.
Some languages don't even handle gender the same way. Like, look at how confusing things are becoming with gender in English.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that has to do with this I identify as. I can buy into anybody identifying as whatever they want, but the one that confuses the heck out of me is, hey, I'm a they.
It's very hard to construct sentences that way because
how can you be more than one? That's the question.
Yeah.
What's the question?
How can you be more than one?
Well, that's the thing is in certain circumstances they can refer to an individual, but usually it means plural, and it's hard to have two people in a sentence and then say they, and how does somebody know who's the subject of the sentence?
But when one of
Unless
these
you say that person's name instead of they, and then that gets clumsy sounding.
but when one of these millennials identifies their sexuality as a they, I think of schizophrenia. I'm like, what do you mean? How many people are in there?
Exactly.
It
Yeah,
scares me.
because some people will say that that's their what do they call it? The gender identity.
Yeah,
It is a they.
pronouns.
It'll be non-binary. And there's one, and I'm sorry to say it on the air because it's a bit of a almost a swear word. It's gender queer is another thing I've heard of, where some individual
That
might use the
makes
word
no
they.
sense. The thing is, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, and it's almost like logic and knowledge has been thrown out
Just
the window.
being non-binary.
Yeah, they don't think that. Yeah, there's this whole idea now that gender is some sort of is some sort of a spectrum, and that
Mhm.
a spectrum between male and female, but that doesn't really, and potentially like infinite number of other terms that could be used.
Yeah, if it's based on how you feel, there are so many levels of femininity in males and masculinity in females. You're right; it would
Yeah.
become indefinite.
It would.
Yeah, so they would say that. So some people will say that they're, and here I'm using the word they, but some individuals will say that they're non-binary or genderqueer, and I'm not even sure the difference between the two. And the thing is, I think somehow with social justice, a lot of that's based upon lived experience. So even somebody calling themselves a lesbian, that could mean something completely different. Like,
Yeah.
What's up, that Star Wars guy?
You know nobody's watching this, right?
No,
so
we
this
got
is
four people
that this
Nobody's
testified
watching.
guy who's given he was exiled to Panama, right?
Yeah, but look, that Star
Willingly.
Wars guy. Here's the good news:
Nobody
you're
cares.
here, so we can proselytize and speak of the Lord with you.
Exactly.
You want to speak about the Lord?
Let's do it.
End of stream now,
Why?
because nobody cares.
Oh well, that's just breaking my heart, son.
Mhm.
You have a dumbass talking that thinks he knows anything about women.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, he knows nothing.
Oops, he fell away. What happened there? Oh
What a shame.
darn! Darn!
He incurred, well, as the ancients would say, he incurred the wrath of God.
Yeah, it seems.
The
so.
wrath of someone.
I'll
Yeah, that.
never tell.
But
I'm
that's
sorry.
just the
Yeah,
truth.
so yeah, that testified guy uses he's that Star Wars guy or something as well, or also known as Testy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll allow everybody a chance to get in, but when they start with that, I don't know who he was talking about, but one of us was a dumbass who doesn't know anything about women. I'm like, click, done. If you can't be
Yeah.
civil, you
Yeah,
can go home.
he's never been civil once before. He's been on here as 3
Yeah,
or 4 times now, I think.
But notice now I'm getting better. He only got about 30 seconds of wind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, but the thing is about the transgender thing now. What most people fail to realize is that most girls go through a phase of being tomboys where they want to try things.
Yep.
But as they grow older, they grow out of it. They mistake that little phase of their lives for being transgender. It's the same thing for guys. They will go through this phase of wanting to try things.
And it's
When
weird
they
because
find
I
that
think, go ahead.
no, when they find that it doesn't fit who they are, they know that at least they tried to see what it was about.
Right.
So it's like,
In a secular life, that makes sense.
yeah,
But the damage they do to their lives doing that can be, I don't know, like if there's surgery involved, you just,
Right.
that's a line you have a hard time going back on again.
I know. Now you have an emergence of people who have transitioned regretting going through that transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
And they've transitioned back to their original gender.
That's why I wish people would. Now it's called homophobic and that's transphobic. If somebody suggests that maybe trans people are their own category, instead of trying to go and label themselves like a biological woman or a biological male.
Yeah.
Well,
But that all stems from the human teaching of love yourself, be proud of who you are, be who you are. Now, I just want to remind everybody, the Bible says that we're all sinners. And so that's a natural thing. If we embrace who we are, and Jesus said, out of the mouth, out of our hearts comes the evil of men, then we should understand that, there's going to be some things in there that don't line up exactly with where God wants us. Now, that might not, I want to say this. I'm not saying anybody's going to burn in hell if they're gay. No. Nobody's going to hell unless they have denied the Lord. That's the key. Everything else is forgivable except for blasphemy of the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm responding to Katie on Facebook. Hi, Katie.
Well, now you know why Lucifer. Now you know why the devil has fun with humans.
Yeah,
because we are so gullible.
Yes, we are. Plus, we're weak. Okay.
And you want to know the funny part about all of this is?
Yeah.
The devil never goes out of his way to lie to us. We have already lied to ourselves about him.
Mm-hmm.
He will make a deal with us, but we as humans neglect to read the contract. That's our fault. When anything bad happens to us in this deal, it's our fault for not reading it. And
it's also, it comes down to who you're leaning on when things do go bad. Are you leaning on yourself or God?
Right.
If you don't walk into the light, you're stuck in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Hey, guys. So it's 10:38, and I have to go to work in the morning, so I'm going to have to kill the stream. But I think we had a very good chat tonight.
Yeah, I think so, too. Yeah. Yeah, I wish I known you were going on earlier.
Yeah, I didn't know I was coming on. My wife reminded me about 8:30, she said, or maybe it was 8 o'clock. She says, "Are we going to do God chat tonight?"
Okay, because you're welcome to put that. You're welcome to put that in the Sleek Stackians. Because I didn't do it to stream on my channel in particular. I was just curious if anybody wanted to stream tonight or was streaming or whatever.
Yeah, I did want to stream, obviously, because when she said it, I was like, great idea. And I hate myself because on last Thursday, I fell asleep again.
Well, don't hate yourself.
You know how it is, don't you? You beat yourself up.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating. One can get frustrated with themselves, but
no, I mean it drives me crazy when I make a plan and then I pass out. Yeah, it's like,
there's robot mechanic in the chat.
Yeah, he's been there most of the night.
Cool.
And I was very happy. Before I close anything, I've got to say, Robot Mechanic, I'm very happy to find out you're a Christian or a believer, whatever you classify yourself as. And I'm glad you believe the Bible. And I'm really glad that I learned that tonight, because honestly, I forget who I am when I am on Twitter sometimes. You know what I'm saying? I snap a little. I'll say F this, F that, or I'll take a snide remark at somebody. When I know you guys are believers and I see you there, it'll help remind me, brothers keep brothers accountable. Even if you say nothing, just your presence will help me. Because I could do a lot better with these guys. I get so frustrated, and I should just shut it off. But
it's real. What happens with Twitter is it utilizes it's like a. What was it? I think it was it operant conditioning where there was I think it was B.F. Skinner trained those pigeons to or Pavlov trained the dogs to salivate when there's food nearby. They got a little thing where you got this little notification and this little bell, and then you go and you press on it, and you get the reward of seeing these tweets. Somebody responded to your tweet. Now that reward might be somebody, from that notification might be somebody, cursing you out over a tweet or saying something stressful. But they made it so addictive with Twitter, and they did the same thing with Facebook.
Yep.
And,
You get into those arguments, and when you feel you won, you get that amorphin, that or whatever they call that.
Yeah, what they're doing is they're using psychology.
Or when Sleestack comes along and hits a like on something I've said, I go, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm sure they hired some experts on human psychology and even maybe it's like Sleestack or Altrusian psychology to go and make it so addictive. I even see cats and dogs on Twitter. I see their avatars all the time. So,
well, it's amazing because even the opposite works. Because I know when I've been dogged on, and other people I've seen this happen to too, when they get dogged on, they end up jumping on there more. Yeah. And the problem is some of these people snap. Like we've had one or two suicides over the last 4 or 5 years, where there was nobody I knew, but I've heard about users that have killed themselves.
Oh yeah.
And you just know they've got, that's the name for it. But you just know they've gotten sucked in and just drained of energy that they didn't care. Serotonin, dopamine. Yes, those are two of them.
Yeah, people get I think they get a dopamine hit when they see that somebody liked their stuff or there's a tweet for them or.
And we all feel that. I know I do, but I have to learn not to be tricked by that.
Yeah, that's why some people quit altogether. And I do find Twitter useful for sharing out the links to shows, or whether it be the StreamYard link or the Hangouts or it be the YouTube link, letting people know, and I think that's where the social networks are really helpful. Or if somebody goes and they use, say, Periscope or on Twitter, or they use Facebook for live streaming, that's useful. But I'm arguing over stuff none of us can control is very unuseful. And I think the Buddhists would call that unskillful, or I think Jesus would call that missing the mark.
All right, fellas, I'm back.
I would just call it spinning your wheels. It's like, wow, look at how much energy I just wasted arguing with somebody who's never going to change their mind, and he can't change mine.
Yeah,
we spent 4 hours.
It's not useful. It's
non-productive.
Non-productive, yeah. Counterproductive, even.
Amen. I can tell you that when I get obsessed with stuff, I lose track of my book and I fall behind.
First of all, you have to realize what you're arguing about.
Yeah.
And I find it useful to keep track of the day of the week when I'm on Twitter, because if it's towards the weekend, it's like, okay, people are going to be arguing over things that people won't spend the time to argue over during the week. Like if it was a Monday, they wouldn't necessarily be arguing about this unless they're still arguing about something that was mentioned on Friday or whatever. But toward that end of the week or the beginning, or maybe a Sunday even, there's going to be some really silly arguments on Twitter. Or even if they're not silly, they're going to be just completely pointless to.
Robot Mechanic, I have to be more like that, and I really hope I can learn how to do that, because I love social networking for contacting people. I love the positive moments. I love encouraging other artists, other writers. But then it gets in, as much as I love that, if a certain frog artist, for instance, starts picking on somebody, for some reason I feel like I have to step in, and I like to blame my superhero heritage, where I'm like, well, I grew up on Stan Lee. But sometimes it's a lot more than that. Sometimes I just want to be a dickhead back, and I shouldn't be that way.
And all sides will credit Stan Lee. I mean, a certain frog creator claimed that that's why he came back into Comicsgate, was because some SJWs were supposedly saying some bad stuff about Stan Lee. It might have even turned out that particular quote about Stan Lee that caused him to rejoin, it might have even been a fake quote,
Well,
there
anything
were
that comes out of,
SJWs who did say bad things about Stan Lee, I'm pretty sure.
just remember, anything that comes out of a frog's mouth is usually a lie.
Yeah, Kermit's okay.
Well, you think, but I'll tell you, I'm going to tell you a secret. I found this out on in the National Enquirer.
Oh, is it?
Kermit had a hand up his head. There was a hand up his head.
There's a hand up somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah,
Where
well,
it
it might have gone in a different spot, but I know it was up in his head, and
yeah,
I
it
know
did end up that far.
he wasn't really a frog.
Oh.
He was a puppet.
Hey, fellas, I'm gonna have to step out and step back in because something's wrong with the volume on my end.
Oh, that might have just been me.
Oh yeah, you're whispering.
I tried to get real soft about the secret. Oh, poor
Oh,
guy.
I think he's gonna.
Yeah, he still couldn't hear us, I think, or I really messed with him in the long run there.
I think there's some sort of. I have a difficult time hearing him a lot of the time.
I want to buy him a setup. I want to send him like a microphone and a good connection.
He's
And
using a cell phone, so I don't know.
yeah. But I mean, as his brother, as his friend, I would just love to send him one and say, "Bro, use this."
Yeah, and a lot of times I don't think he's able to charge the phone either when he's talking, or like he can't plug it into the wall, so
Yep.
the phone goes dead. Welcome
All
back.
right. Yeah.
Hey Terry, I was just saying, I want to get you a microphone and send it to you.
No, the thing is when the call comes through, it's like after I hang up or decline the call, it's like the volume that's so low.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So sometimes you got to step out and step back in.
But you have such a great speaking voice. I would love to hear you on like a radio microphone. Like I could hear you being like, and today in the top 40, you know?
You're not the first one to tell me that.
Amen. All right. So now I really should go before it hits 11.
Oh yeah.
But I
it's
love
all
you
good.
guys. Thank you so much for tonight. And I feel really good. And I'm going to hopefully have a positive night's sleep and wake up in sunshine.
Well, tell Diana to keep a positive attitude.
Oh, she's a babe with me. She just, you know what happened tonight? I just got really down and she was trying to be all fluffy. And I'm like, don't be fluffy. I want sandpaper tonight.
She might have the right idea, though. There's little we can do about. There's all these protests in different areas, and each city it's different. So
Yeah.
one city, their police might be really cracking down on people, and that could lead to riots.
Right.
There's some other city, people might be coming in just causing riots to, there
Mhm.
could be another city there's no riots and just be completely peaceful.
Well, you know what's funny is
it's not all just one protest. It's just
we're
massive
very close
protest.
to Boston, Massachusetts, and they are a wannabe city. They really want to be part of all this stuff, but like they had a couple of nights of what they called rioting, but it was really weak compared to everywhere else. But like they
Yeah.
really do have peaceful Black
understand.
Lives Matters and stuff, and the protests are generally tame, and it's like
No, that's
they're trying so hard to be progressive, but everybody's so
Yeah.
nice.
well, that's
Yeah,
another form. There are some
Boston is an
progressives who are like
area
that.
of districts, so it's like 16 different districts. Each acts like an individual town.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
That's the thing about Boston. That's what it's like. Each of these
So-
districts act like a different town.
Yep.
Well, here in Traverse City, we're really small, and the people here would like to be like in a big city. Some of the people here, and so, but the thing is, when we have protests, at least in the past, people got the proper permits.
Right.
Even people who are like anarchists will actually go out and get the proper permits, and then they don't have any sort of tension with. And I don't know. I haven't even seen any protests about Black Lives Matters in this town, but there was an Occupy movement, and they get together like every Saturday. It wasn't like they didn't
The Occupy movement was.
they just got together
I
and
found the
Saturday.
Occupy movement funny. I found it funny because of the way they were so organized. I mean, they made sure they had everything in place. The police were notified, and it was like organizing a parade where you shut off certain streets or certain areas for a
Yeah,
certain amount of time. It was like that. It's like, man, these guys are organized. Why can't everybody else be as organized as they are?
We actually had a Black Lives Matter protest in our town too. I only saw about 15 people there. Of the 15, 2 were black, but they were peaceful.
Yeah,
yeah, that's the way to do that, and that actually can go and get people thinking about things.
The
And
problem-
well, maybe we
the
should
problem is you get
problem with police brutality, or
right, but the problem is you get these people who just like the chaos.
Yep.
And they start mingling in with peaceful protesters, and then eventually they take over.
I think that's what happened with Antifa in the riots. And I'm going to be honest, I know we have a lot of videos showing black people in riot situations, but I
Sure.
also know that there was somebody going, "Hey, look, I can break this window and get in," and it's some little white punk Antifa.
yeah, there's lots of
Yeah.
videos.
Starts the
Yeah,
ball
of black
rolling,
people
you know?
saying,
Right.
"Hey, don't do this," and these white people, they're like, "Why not?"
That voice in the crowd that starts everything.
Yeah, it's
And
like
in certain circumstances, it's white people coming in from the suburbs into the city.
Oh yeah. So my favorite videos to watch have been like there were Crips in LA that chased a couple of Antifa punks out of their neighborhood.
Wow.
There have been good signs where there have been black people who are like, "No, you're not coming in here and messing up my community. You're an entitled white person. Go home." You know, and they were absolutely right.
That situation that Chaz,
Gangbangers are the perfect answer to these Antifa lunatics.
They really are.
Because it's like Antifa comes through town, they mess up everything. Gangbangers don't bother nobody.
it could be, I don't even know with Antifa, it could be even just a tiny amount of them that are using violence.
Yeah.
But the fact that they allow violence to happen and they believe in the diversity of tactics, it makes for all sorts of bad things to happen. And then when it looks bad, then they're saying, even though they believe in a diversity of tactics, they claim, "Oh, not just a bunch of Trump supporters pretending to be Antifa."
Mhm.
And think, well, if Antifa didn't allow for violence to begin with, then a mass protester couldn't claim to be Antifa. You know, and it's hard to, nobody knows for sure who anybody is if they're all wearing masks. I can understand with this COVID-19 thing.
Well, I know I saw some people in videos. I saw some people in the early videos that were definitely white, and they were definitely messing up windows and stuff, and they definitely weren't Antifa. Who they were, I don't know, but they were older white guys. Where if you look at Antifa, it's almost always young white
college age.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let you guys in on a little secret. Gangbangers have more respect for police than anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. It's basically their way of taking authority over a situation they get from the cops.
Interesting.
If you're organized in such a way that people respect you, you can do just about anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys. Now it's 5 to 11. I'm really going this time. I love you guys. I'll see you next time.
Okay.
And I'll see you. Terry, are you on Twitter too?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Terry's in the Sleestackians group.
All right, I'm gonna seek you out there too because I got you on Facebook now as well.
Yeah.
You my brother. All right. I'm going to crash. See you later, guys.
Right,
Yeah.
Robot and Katie, if you're still there. Off we go.